everyone, or the lonely few out there. Not even sure who all of our listeners are right now, but appreciate you being here. It's Joe Nix back with our podcast. My good buddy Dan, introduce yourself too.
Hey everyone, yeah, excited to be here again. Interested to see like who actually watches this and if anyone does. But excited to kind of keep talking about like kind of just the idea of like what we want to be doing here. And I think this one a lot today, we're just going to be talking about what does the podcast look like. And so that's what we were just discussing is literally like, what does it look like? How do we film it or record it? You were talking about Joe Rogan. What was the stuff you liked about that one?
So this is a great point to start. And like, as Dan was saying, like this kind of content topic material for today's episode is just what further delving into what we want this podcast to be and how it connects with us and how we want it to connect with our audience. And right before we got started, as Dan was mentioning, I had brought up Joe Rogan's podcast. Obviously, probably everyone's familiar with that. I think it's been the number one podcast since basically podcasts were a thing.
Which I didn't know it was number one. That's so crazy.
Yeah, I think it still is. It's a normal weekly podcast. So there's different like kind of serial type ones that come on and do special episodes that get more. But I think for a long running, I wish I could Google that later and find out if I'm
that's
speaking truth. But I think it has been. And so anyway, I think in any situation when there's something else that's clearly been a front runner like that for so long, it's a great thing to look to for potential notes or thoughts on how we want to do it. And one of the things I really thought was interesting about how he has it set up is it's a very basic setup as far as his the room that they record in and speak. Like they've got some quality technology just for the recording and the video and stuff, but otherwise like they keep it really kind of lo-fi and very it still feels kind of personal. Like it's just two people sitting across from each other and some desks and just kind of keeping it real. But the other thing I thought was really interesting is just the different camera angles that they had. One of the things that was noticeable is they often view the participant, Joe Rogan, like speaking and whoever's there as his guest from the side, and so that they have eye contact with each other as they're speaking to each other and dialoguing. But the cameras get to capture seeing both of those people, but looking and engaging with each other, not as we're doing, kind of staring into the screen and the recorder from two different places, two different offices, obviously. But it's, I don't know, just not sure how to necessarily capture that, but I think it's a really interesting kind of idea that may help people engage and not be as distracted with where my eyes are or your eyes, like looking at the camera or not looking at the camera. I like to stare away distance a lot when thinking. So
I feel like when I watched our last one, I feel like I noticed like I felt like my eyes, I kept like wanting to look at the camera or then like looking at you or then like looking at, and I was like, oh man, it was like distracting me. I was like, all right. So that's a good idea. I wonder if there's a way to, I don't know how we do it like with this setup that we're not like actually in the same room, but trying to figure out a way to record it so that we could see each other or like in that way.
I think it's a really interesting idea, and with all of this, because it just opens us up to more questions. Like so much knowledge does. Answering a question or discovering something just raises other opportunities and other questions. And I'm excited to see where this goes forward, and also just to like the community that responds with this too. Like just interested in what other people think. And I'm still kind of growing in as a podcast listener. I mean, there's probably there's only two or three that I listen to with any frequency, and just trying to kind of pick up on different things I like about them or don't. And that's, I think, something we want to talk about here today. The question I'll pose to you now, Dan, is just like things that you found in the last 5 or 6 years, just listening to different podcasts, things that you're interested in emulating or.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you brought up like with Joe Rogan and like the way they film it, that it's like I don't know, a little bit more raw and
Mm.
stuff. And so I think that kind of relates back to our ideas. Like we've talked about wanting this to be like really authentic, and how do we, yeah, make this feel that way and be ourselves on camera, which I think is half the problem, is just relaxing. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that actually. I had some connection that made sense, but now I can't remember at all.
The
um,
fantastic thing about video.
yeah,
This
right
is
now it's all
authentic.
recorded.
That happens.
Um, but some other podcast that I feel, or yeah, just that, I don't know. Yeah, it is just kind of like raw and uncut. And like, I think I appreciate that. And I think that's what I think people want to see and hear, is not, I think there's a level you can do like good production, but it still feel authentic, which is cool. I was trying to think about like, yeah, other podcasts I listen to and like, what about them
Mhm.
is appealing? And that's, it's Ninja Podcast is a real estate podcast that I listen to pretty regularly. And yeah, I like that it's pretty short. A lot of the episodes are only like 30 minutes. And they just come with an idea, something they want to discuss. It's just two guys. We should look. I know they video theirs as well, and
Okay.
they're on opposite sides of the
Because I've
country.
heard them before, but I haven't watched the video, so I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, me neither. I wonder how they do that. That'd be kind of cool.
And is that
Uh,
Ninja Podcast or Ninja Selling Podcast? What's that?
it's yeah, the Ninja Selling Podcast.
Yeah.
So it's like it's definitely like real estate focused. Some people like apply it to other businesses, and it totally does work. But it's very much a real estate podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And another real estate podcast that we both have listened to in the past is Bigger Pockets podcast, which is probably one of the most popular real estate related podcasts in America at this point. And I think they do some really neat things on their podcast. And they also are not together. Like the two hosts of that have lived in different
Yeah, that's right.
for the
Yeah,
majority
Brandon
of-
left though. He's not on it anymore.
No way.
Yeah, he's like sabbatical for the next
Okay.
year.
Okay.
So,
I've been out
David
of the
Keenan.
loop on that podcast for probably a year now, but
And it was just at like the end of last year. He like
Okay.
stopped, but which is kind of weird. I feel like he was that podcast. So
Yeah.
we kind of want to see how do they move forward with like, yeah, kind of the co-host now is like leading it. But it'd be cool.
that's really interesting. I think what I was trying to say with it is the one thing I think is so interesting about it, and we both like this, is just they have a consistent set of questions at the end of every episode that they ask whoever their guest is. And I think that's a really neat way of connecting with the audience and having some consistency over all the different episodes, and giving insight, just all these different people, what they think about these 5 different questions. And I think like one of them that what we were interested in doing is, about what you've been reading lately. What's 5 books that you would suggest to somebody. I think another one is Tim Ferriss's podcast has been pretty influential to me over the years. And I think an aspect of that is just how authentic I feel like he is in those, and just consistently having guests who are doing something that interests him. It's some part of his life, something he's trying to learn about. And just, I think the actual interest and engagement is so easy for it to come across as authentic when it is. When it's coming out of a place that is actually like what he wants to know and what he wants to learn about. And so one of the things he asks is if there's what's the book that they most often give to somebody or suggest other people read.
I like that. That's cool.
And I think that's a really interesting question, just because it really brings out something about that individual and what they're engaged in. I think timing affects, for a lot of us, the effect of like what a book or a different podcast or an idea has, just where we are in our life. But it's really neat to get a tiny picture or glimpse into someone else's life, and some book that was a fork in the road for them, something that
cool.
changed the way they approach life or thought about life. And
that's cool. Yeah, I like that. It's like not like, I don't know, everyone. Yeah, it's like, what's your favorite book or something like that. But I like the idea of like, what's the one that you give the most, or recommend the most? I feel like kind of changes it a little bit. What would you say? Yeah, what's the book you would
Hmm,
given the most, or you would recommend the most to people?
man, that's really interesting. I think, 2 or 3 years ago, for a while, it was, oh man, this is funny. I'm forgetting the name right now. The Go Giver,
Oh yeah, okay.
actually, which again is another. We're both real estate agents, so and before that, real estate investors, and just that's been a lot of our joy and connection with each other. But often is things that we share is what we've been engaged in, Dan and I. And so the Go Giver is kind of focused around real estate stuff too, but just a really neat kind of concept on how to show up in life and just how to stand in your own worth and your own value, but provide provide value to others and how to show up. And so I thought that was really impactful. So I think that's been a big one.
That's cool. I've never read it. Actually,
Oh,
I tried the audiobook for Go Giver Influencer. It was like it was like the updated version. And I had something about, I don't know if it was the audiobook or that it was like an attempt to do it in a more like modern context. I had a harder time getting into it.
mhm.
Um, so I should try to pick up like an actual like or read it.
Yeah.
Would be interesting. But I mean, so many of the ideas in that book are like, I don't know, yeah, they're very foundational to like our business models and how we're trying to do real estate and engage with our communities and stuff, which was cool.
So what would that book be for you?
Shoot, I knew you were gonna ask. Man, I don't know. Hmm, It's really hard. I feel like it's changed so much recently. I think what I would give. It would probably be Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. It's yeah, it's like science fiction, but it explores like, I don't know, the idea of like culture and like where does culture come from, and how to like, I don't, and like biology and like how like our environment plays
Mhm.
an impact on how we interact with each other. So I thought it's brilliantly written. It's so cool. The author is he's like a psychologist and an entomologist. So he kind of studied animals and humans and kind of brought it together in this kind of like cool fictionalized world that's
Yeah,
super fun. So I think that's the one I like.
that's really interesting. I've
Yeah.
heard about that book from other people and you in the past, and uh, very interested in that. I think it's a funny question too, just because very often, as you said before, very often like the book that we love the most at that moment is not necessarily like the book that you're giving away or suggesting other people read. And I think that
Right.
through for me, a lot of my favorite books, like I don't it's not that I don't have amazing friends and ones who love reading and stuff, but a lot of them are just deeper and more involved than I feel like most people will actually pick up and read.
Mm,
Which I think is one reason that other like the Go Giver came up as like a gift book, because it's short. It's
yeah.
120 pages or whatever, and you can consume it in a couple hours. Um, and but I love that. I love that idea. And it's really neat how influential in our lives the literature and books have been for
Absolutely. Yeah,
learning
the
new
book I
ideas.
would want to like the book I want to give to everyone is Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari.
Got multiple
But
books,
it's like 800 pages and
right?
like nobody wants to get that book. Like if you want to read it, you'll go buy it. Like
Yeah,
nobody's excited to get like something like that. It's like, oh man, that's like
good
I'm
job
never, yeah,
receiving a job for a gift.
yeah, right. So
That's pretty funny. Uh,
yeah,
so that's a great question, and I think we'll definitely try to incorporate something like that and just kind of work
that'd
through
be
a
cool.
process of coming up with 3 to 5 questions that we want to ask when we do have guests and when we do have people, because that's a big desire of this. Kind of reflecting back on our first podcast about building community, like so much of
Yeah.
our innate inherent desire to do this is to cultivate and build
Yeah.
community, and I think that just connecting with people through this podcast, through having them on it, is a really neat way of doing that too.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to
Yeah.
see where those
I
questions
think
go.
that's a big point. I think, yeah, with both like, yeah, Bigger Pockets, and you mentioned like Tim Ferriss, like I think them having guests and interviewing them about things that they're interested in, I think that has a lot of appeal and would be a really cool thing to try to do. I mean, I think I don't know, I love the idea of us sharing, but like I think at the end of the day, like I don't know how much, I don't know how much we have to offer, or like it feels hard to think about, yeah, what do we keep coming up with to talk about that people would actually want to listen to. But maybe there are cool things. But I think I love the idea of interviewing people and having people
Mhm.
on that we think are doing cool things
Mhm.
and are living authentic lives, building cool communities, doing amazing things in their business, or whatever it might be, and then being able to try to learn and hear about them, would be really cool.
I think it would. I was having an idea as you were talking about that, and even in thinking about like what our top five, favorite books in the last year or something like that is, and seeing if any of those were written recently, and by that I just mean have authors who are still active and alive, and
Yeah,
what's it like trying to set up an appointment to talk to an author, to just engage with
yeah,
them
right.
about this book that changed us, and the way you approach something or view something, and just trying to um, at least for ourselves be more outside the box, and how we move through forward in this, and just so desirous of it being engaging and inspiring, not just to those who happen upon it, but to us, and I think that's so
Right.
important in keeping the authenticity and the building community aspect has to be genuine.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's, yeah, it's like fun, like, or like the modern world, like we can just reach out to any author out there and
Wild.
like potentially connect with them like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's really wild. The Michael Schellenberger wrote like Apocalypse Never. It's not like anti-climate change, but just like he like pushes back against like some of our responses to it.
Mhm.
But my wife Cindy, she like read it and like loved it and like made some graphics to like help like illustrate some of the concepts from his book, and like posted them and like messaged him about it, and he like shared them and stuff, and was like, hey, these are awesome, thanks, I appreciate it, and like put them out on the internet for people. Like it was
That's
so
so
cool to
neat.
be able to connect with someone that like we respected and was like, wow, this is amazing. And he like was just like, I think that's what we forget, like they're just normal people and we have access to them now, like you can just reach out, and that's
Mhm.
so fun.
Yeah, and obviously, like somebody's response, whether they want to or not, is completely up to them. But just it's so neat to live at a time in a place where it's actually accessible. Like
Yeah,
we have the option of reaching out to people that we're interested in, even if we feel, from a completely different part or section of life, and whether that be financial or distance or age or any of that. I just think it's really neat to just be able to put that question out there and see if people want to engage.
right, that's so cool.
It really is. I'm super excited about just connecting with other business owners, and people that we've met over the last few years that have just been inspiring as well, and seeing if they're interested in talking about how they got to where they are, and why they make the
Mhm.
choices they make, and just kind of follow the breadcrumbs of where our interest is, and see where this
Yeah,
goes.
yeah, I like that idea of, yeah, exploring people's stories
Mm.
about how did they get to where they are, and that I think especially that both of us are still like pretty young and like in, I don't know, I guess, and new in our careers in some capacities. You've been in real estate for quite a while, but we both have like new ventures we're always developing, and so I think I love the idea, yeah, of talking to other people and hearing about how they built their business or or just their life or whatever they're working on, would be really interesting.
so fascinated in the why behind what people occupy their time with. I think
Hmm.
this is kind of going back to our first podcast too, just our desire and intent to be around passionate, engaged people, and those are the people that I'm interested in their intent, because I think there is an immense amount, and this is not a judgment, but it's very easy to just cruise through life. It's very easy just to um, consume and take in what's put in front of us every day and go to sleep and get up and do it again. But out of those individuals we do see forging their own path and setting up their own designs and creations on what they want to do in life, is just the why behind that. Like where did that idea start? Where did that passion come from? Why have they chosen to get off the beaten path and just wake up and receive whatever's being put out there, but actually create their own? And just man, that's going to be neat.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. What about you? Like why, like I think both of us are, yeah, I've identified that like we want to be pushing ourselves and like pursuing new things and being challenged in our life. And um yeah, what's your why behind that? Like you could just be, I don't know, you've been in real estate for a while and now you're pursuing other things with coaching and stuff. Like why continue to push and change? Like why not just, I don't know, kind of coast where you were at?
Hmm. That's a great question, and I mean, obviously it's going to be such a unique answer to any individual, um, and obviously mine is too. And I think a lot of it just goes back to like what we're talking about, of just staying engaged in who and what it is we are. And for me, it's very often been a consistently evolving thing. Real estate is, for the last 25 years of my life at least, been a major theme in that, but there keeps being other aspects to it, and now developing a coaching business, and surrounding worthiness and success in people's life, and just stepping up for themselves and how to follow their own dreams. And I think that's a lot of my evolution over the past 10 years, is just letting myself do what it is actually interesting and engaging to me. And it's interesting because I think like the challenging, somewhat scary aspect of these different things is an important part of what engages me about it. There's a lot about wanting to do this podcast that comes out of, it's terrifying for me to do this
Right.
podcast, and to, in a way, I mean, like, I absolutely appreciate the opportunity to have a platform, and to have a relationship with you that we can connect in this way and reach out and see what happens. But the idea of coming up with content, the idea of being on a video, the idea of staring off to space when I'm thinking about something and somebody making fun of me, and getting my feelings hurt, is real. And it's a cool opportunity to show up in that. And I think that risk piece is inherently been a component to what attracts me in life, and pushes me and kind of keeps me on the edge of like, this is engaging and interesting, but I'm also expanding while doing it. It also pushes me to be something more different um, than what I was.
Cool. Yeah, I identify so much with that idea of like, if something feels risky or like I feel afraid of it, I like my initial reaction is to pull away and like run from that. Like I don't want to push into those things, but like I feel like more recently in my life I've tried to like make a commitment. No, like when I do feel those things, like I want to actually do the opposite and push into those things and say like, no, this is an opportunity for growth. Like, um, yeah, where like have you always felt like you've done that, or is it like is it something you've seen develop in your life, or like yeah, where'd that come from?
That's a great question. I think in a way I have, though my understanding, conceptual ability to observe that and see that in myself has definitely changed over the course of years. I mean, I think, in 20s and stuff, like, when I was in my 20s, there was a lot of desire and engagement focused around things that still scared me and stuff. But I think I was a lot less cognitively aware of like that happening. It was kind of just a lot of
Hmm.
stuff happening in life. And a lot of different desires pulling different directions, and just I think later in my 30s and now in like 40s, like just been able to have some space with some of that, have some
Mm.
context to slow down enough to step back and just watch myself sometimes, and not always be like being present but not judging like what's happening that moment, just trying to have a more uh, a position of observation of myself, just to see where those desires and things are coming from. And I think that it has been really consistent that fear. And I don't love using the word fear because I feel like that's a more negative connotation on like just feeling
Mm.
some rub, feeling uh some potential for failure, some potential for this not working out because I don't know what I'm doing yet, is almost always a piece in what I'm attracted to. And I think that's pretty native for a lot of us.
Totally. Yeah.
What
Mm.
we do with that obviously is a very personal thing, whether we choose to lean into that or hold space and observe it, or run, and not to judge any of those choices, just uh,
Yeah.
realize that we have options, and what we historically have done is not what we have to do or do moving forward. And I think
Mm.
that's a really neat idea to kind of explore on this podcast too. Is just the showing up for yourself where you are right now.
Right. Oh man, I feel like it's like almost February. And so it's like, yeah, finishing January. I feel like that's been a huge theme for me all through January. It's just this idea that like January was a big chance to like reflect on the last year and see where like I went through like a move, started a new job, all these things. So January was a great time to like look back and see like, okay, like how'd these things go? And part of it, yeah, was like a bummer. It was like, man, I didn't hit a lot of the goals I had and stuff like that. But it was like, okay. It's January. Like we're starting, this is start fresh, like we'll go. Um, but then like throughout the month, realizing like, no, like every moment is a chance to restart and trying to like really like focus on that mindset that like, I, yeah, to see reflection as like an opportunity to do better, and that like I'm looking for things that I can improve on, and that it's okay if there are things, goals I didn't meet or things that didn't go well. Like, I don't know, I think I've been much more scared of that in the past. For some reason, this month it's been a big focus of like
Mm.
being more okay with those things and being willing to like, I don't know, look back at every week and try to make objective judgments. I think I don't know how to say that without like as a positive thing. Like I
Mm.
think that can be critical and people can be real, and I can be critical of myself, but this was a real positive thing and feeling like really amped on every week being able to like start fresh or every day. Which is yeah, it's huge.
That is huge. And the goal. And I think it's so funny to realize, and this is a mindset thing, and I'm sure my viewpoint is going to be different than an intense amount of people or a great amount of people who hear this. But just the ever um, the consistent ability to participate in now, the to be here in this moment is always an option. Like there's so much of our life that um, from technology and movies and even literature and books, it's so easy to be somewhere else, to be thinking about our past, to be dreaming about our future, to be worried about what happens in a month from now based on this decision I'm making right now. And I think it's really something we have to be willful about, to choose to stay in the moment, to choose to be here now, and let this moment be the moment that I'm active in, that I'm making decisions from, that I'm making choices from. And that's a continually evolving idea for me. And I think participatory in that has just been the need to have more grace for myself, and to
Mhm.
judge less, to just let it be. And I think that's a this podcast is going to be an interesting journey in that, in a new way, to just actually get to document, have video record of like where we are now, what we're doing now, and to be able to look back in a year and just be like, this is who we were when we started, and we're gonna be different people in a year. And what's that journey been? Where's that taken us? Is it a direction we want to be on? And so looking forward to that too.
Oh yeah, I love that. I hadn't even thought about that, of like looking back on these at some point would be real interesting. And
It's just
I'm sure it'll be cringy and terrible, but
absolutely.
also like, but
But
I
same as
love that. And like, I hope it is like that, or I hope I look back and I'm like, oh man, like I have grown so much or changed so much. Like, it can be terrible and wonderful.
I mean, I think people who, if anybody's ever kept a journal at any point in their life, like it's a similar thing, like going back and looking at what was coming out of you, you know, and 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 15 years ago, it's wild. And just how the things that are the same and the things that are different, like there's so much of both. And just realizing like the things that we thought we would have moved on from, you know, mindset wise or whatever, that are still there. And then the pieces of this that just don't even seem familiar anymore. You're like, don't even remember being that person.
Right?
That's pretty wild.
Absolutely.
But all in all, you know, I think it's cool that can all happen from a place of just observation and joy, and what can I learn from it? Like we just don't have to go back in a mindset of judgment or like, what were we doing wrong? Just, hey, that was then, and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so cool.
I'm so excited to continue this podcast journey adventure with you, Dan, and thank you all who are listening and participating in our self-discovery, communal discovery of what this process is. And words, thoughts. Yeah,
thanks everyone that does listen to this or watches this. I'm excited to continue to see where this grows, and kind of the ways we develop this and continue to try to be authentic. And I think it'd be interesting to see what that looks like. How do we produce content that we think people want to see while still just trying to be ourselves? And so I'm excited to continue talking about it and continue to make these.
Awesome. Appreciate it. See you all next time.
Bye.